The next item of business is the public hearing regarding the ordinance annexation of the Enclave Study Area A. Before we open the agenda, we need to begin with an overview of the new state law and statistical information of Area A, and that would be a brief introduction of all the departments that would provide services for this area.
You know, Hot Springs Fire Department has done an analysis of A, B, C, and D areas. We feel like that from a service delivery standpoint, and also from an ISO standpoint, that these 4 annexations can take place without any kind of fear that your ISO rating is going to be lowered. Now, we will lose some points in the process of taking in areas. Your point total is determined on a lot of things, and one of them is the areas you cover that are more than a mile and a half away from the fire stations.
We feel like the police department currently gives exceptional customer service in the area of response to our citizens and our response times. We believe that less than 1,000 people could be equated to adding 1,000 people to a residential subdivision within the city, and we would feel comfortable that we could manage that enclave and continue to give exceptional customer service without or with very little impact on our calls for service.
We've been doing our research. There are 16 businesses that lie in this area with 19 containers. We're geared up and good to go for that. We could start the caps, leaf and mulch, and Earth Angel whenever we're told that we've taken this area in. Now, the one exception that will be needed will be have to negotiate with the county's contractor as far as residential pickup. We're not geared up for that just yet. It'll take us a while to get the containers in and to get our routes set up, but the rest of it we're good to go and excited about adding recycling, to be honest with you.
All of the viewpoints associated with this issue, and each individual will have 3 minutes to speak. If previous speakers have addressed the same issue that you wish to address, please allow the next speaker to come forward. In the event that there are any questions raised by a speaker, we will write those down and hold the responses until the conclusion of the public hearing. In addition, we will maintain the sign-up sheet and continue the public hearing at the November 3rd Board of Directors meeting. So tonight is not the only time for the public hearing. We will continue it. This should afford those who were not able to attend tonight an opportunity to speak on November the 3rd. Also, as a reminder to the board members, this is a public hearing and not a discussion of the board, okay? And should an ordinance be forthcoming at a later date, we will have sufficient time for discussion.
Good evening, my name is Mary Warnable. I'm Justice of the Peace District 4. I reside at 113 Foxwood Street in City District 4. I want to first recognize your authority in doing the annexation process. I understand that it's perfectly within your authority to do so, and I personally don't have a lot of objections as to voluntary annexation. I do believe that there are a lot of benefits in making this annexation move. But I'd like to bring your attention to a meeting that the city and county conducted with the Planning Commission a little over a year ago. It was before some of you were sitting on the board. Director Pat McCabe and Karen Garcia were in attendance. And during that meeting, we had discussed these enclaves. And we had talked about prior attempts at annexation where we had voted and they failed to go through and that kind of thing. And we also discussed the pros and cons of involuntary annexation versus voluntary annexation. And we all kind of agreed at that meeting that the preferred way would be voluntary annexation and not use a heavy-handed ordinance to involuntarily annex these families from these enclaves. So what I would like to respectfully ask is that we reverse our method and choose not to do this action in this manner, and in fact go out the way we had discussed, go door to door if we have to, and convince the residents that you would like to annex in as to why it would be to their benefit, and do it as a voluntary basis. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Skip Houston, live at 155 5 Points Circle. And my comments, I want to touch on 3 points. Number one, you may have a legal right, but I don't think you have a moral right to annex us without representation. Annexation without representation, or in other words, not letting those affected have a vote on this issue, is not acceptable. It is not in keeping with the basic principles that this country was founded on. The legislature, through a poorly conceived law, has given you the power to club us over the head and drag us into your city by force. But how is that fair? Would fairness dictate letting the people vote on this very important issue? I understand, of course, that you don't want to go that route because you know that the majority of us don't want to be annexed. Everybody here tonight, except perhaps 1 or 2 people, has appeared to speak out against this. Every time you've had us vote on it, we turned you down by big margins. In 1998, we won with about 63% of the vote, including the voters in the city. But now you have this power to accomplish your objectives without having to persuade anyone. Just use brute force. Frankly, this heavy-handed approach reminds me a little bit of a suitor who, having been spurned repeatedly by his love interest, finally just uses force to take what he wants. Is that now the Hot Springs way? Second, increasing the area and the number of people, and I've heard about possibly 10 to 15% with all the enclaves. Increasing the area and number of people will increase the costs. There's no assurance the city can properly service that area and population increase. You're not gaining very many businesses. This is mostly residential. This first area, I only know of 1 or 2 businesses in it. You're reducing, at least temporarily, until rates are adjusted or whatever, the water and sewer revenue. Is there a plan to set up a millage property tax, which can be done without a vote of the people, to raise money for services eventually? That idea has been floated, maybe not seriously discussed here, but it's been floated around town. I dare say I could go down any number of streets in Hot Springs and find people who are not receiving full and adequate city services now, and yet you want to expand. And finally, I would suggest that you really don't want us in your city, taking in several thousand people, most of whom don't want to be a part of your city, and many of whom will adamantly oppose you at every political turn in an election. Wouldn't seem to me to be a wise way to build a strong, cohesive city. I'm sure you feel that once we experience firsthand all the benefits of being a citizen of Hot Springs, it will enthusiastically change our minds. I sure wouldn't bet on that happening. I appreciate your time, but please leave us alone.
Okay, I first off want to thank you for having a public hearing on this and for having another one on November 5th. I signed up against this, but I could be for it. Which is up to you. I can be your worst enemy, have been, or I can be your best friend, and which is up to you. As some of you know, the national press and media call me Bill Clinton's archenemy and nemesis. So if I will take on Bill Clinton, I will take on Hot Springs. In fact, I have. In 1998, 3 weeks before the election, I organized a countywide opposition to annexation. And we beat the hell out of that annexation effort, 63% to 37%. So, again, which approach, who I am, is up to you. Do we continue this war? Do I referendum you to death on these annexation efforts and on other important Hot Springs business, which I am fully capable of doing? Do I organize the county voters? Do I organize the volunteer fire departments as I did last time and make war on Hot Springs as you are making war on the county with this effort to force annexation? I attended the annexation meeting that Mary Barnville talked about a year ago. What has changed? At that time, the fire department chief, the police department said we cannot service one of these enclaves. Okay. Now, I want to switch to the positive. We can make peace. We can change our